Hello, my name is Gary Briscoe and I'm here to talk about the anti-racism strategy. So in July 2021, the East of England and the Integrated Care System, that's all the services together, launched their anti-racism strategy. And all of our systems and organisations, all the various trusts were asked to commit to becoming anti-racist organisations. And essentially that means that you're not just an organisation that challenges racism when you see it, but you take steps to prevent racism and discrimination happening in the first place. And you look at the systems within your organisation to look for bias and discrimination and where that can be removed. Now, as part of this, we asked everyone to commit through a pledge. So we asked people to post on social media, and we're going to be talking about doing that again a little bit later in this video. But pledges were tweeted throughout October from individuals across the integrated care system as staff committed to making changes. And that wasn't just our senior leads, that wasn't just our equality advisors, but that was encouraging everyone to say, here's what I'm going to do to be anti-racist and to be an ally. And one of the things that we made for this anti-racism strategy was a very short presentation that I'm going to show you now that just really shares the experiences of discrimination and racism and also people's experiences of being an ally. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to switch over to that now.
When I started in NHS, there's not many people that look like me.
Growing up, I would be walking to school and people used to open the windows and say, "Go home, Packy." And I was 8.
We do, whether we like it or not, exist in a state of structural racism.
I've always felt I have to work a little bit harder than my colleagues.
Slavery was meant to have ended years ago, but that thinking is still very much with us.
There's this saying back in Trinidad, if you don't stand for something, you fall for anything.
There's something that you feel in the room sometimes. We have conversations about equality and diversity where you look around the room and it's a sea of white faces.
I think for several years I'm the only senior matron who looks like me. A few years after that we've got another. So there's only 2 of us who's from diverse background, and we try very much to support each other. Because of that, you make yourself work harder, you give a bit more. I don't have to keep on proving myself, but you do as someone from diverse background.
I never thought progression was for people that looked like me. It was only when I started working in the clinical commissioning group and my manager said, "Shama, I want to talk to you about progression." I was thinking back to being in society growing up, but not necessarily part of it. So I thought, how can I climb a ladder that I don't even think I'm part of, actually?
That's where I think we need to start from changing the mindsets, particularly among the white people. There needs to be a partnership between the black and the white. In terms of talent, you've got BME people with equal, if not more qualifications, because there are 200 million Nigerians. I'll use myself perhaps as an example. I said I'm a professor of clinical pharmacy and pharmacy practice, but I have been the only member of my senior management team for the last 10, 11 years.
A couple of years ago, I was on the National Ready Now programme, which is for senior minority ethnic leaders. And it was a very difficult programme for me because what it did is it challenged exactly that I was leaving my identity at home thinking, right, now today's Monday, so I have to go to the NHS to work. And now it's Saturday, so I have to cook some Asian food and wear my shalwar kameez. It helped me to understand that I can't be the best I am if I don't bring all of me to work. And actually, what's that done today for me as a leader is I feel much more integrated in myself as a person. I can be a better leader, I can support other people, and for white majority managers and white majority leaders to be able to be comfortable and feel safe in addressing issues and supporting minority ethnic staff.
When I first started at Ipswich Hospital, the chief exec there, Nick, gave a talk at the first induction, and the expression that he used is the care that you walk past is the care that you accept.
the NHS has to create an environment that enables people to feel, that their skills, their experience would make a difference, but give them the confidence to be able to, take that step. It's about certainly at the most senior levels in our organizations, people showing and our leaders showing that commitment. That includes me. I'm a senior leader. Yes, even as a minority senior leader, I still have to be able to demonstrate and show that, commitment to addressing any inequalities that exist.
Trauma is hard to explain because unless you've lived it, you can't fully understand what it is like. You can't. I was managing a team. I recognized pretty early that I had one particular person who didn't like when I gave out tasks. She didn't like when it came from me. We were both in the office together. She then proceeds to walk around the desk, and then she proceeds to stand next to me. And she holds a disinfectant spray bottle to my head like a gun, like this. She then proceeds to spray me with the disinfectant. Disinfectant in my hair, on the side of my face, on my glasses, all over my desk. She then walked back over to her desk. I was so angry. I was angry because I wanted to fight. And I know that if I fought, I would be the issue. I walked out of that office. I went to the bathroom for 15 minutes. I cried and cried and cried and cried. And there was a big investigation. It took almost 9 months. The person still works in the organization. I've had to have therapy over this. A microaggression is part of racism. It's part of the structure.
When people infer that you don't quite know what you're doing, or you're not quite competent to make decisions, or who are you to tell me what to do, even though I am eminently qualified.
When I walk into a room, it's very easy to tell that I'm a black man, but when it comes to your work being valued, it always feels that you just got to do a little bit more.
I'd never looked at a job and thought, oh, but has a white person ever done that job? Is any characteristic that just makes up who I am gonna be something which could potentially hold me back in any way?
As a diverse person, I don't expect the world to change for me. The change is within me. But I would ask my colleagues and the patients is just take hold and be aware of your personal biases and actually outwardly stop it if you hear it. If we all do that, then it will ripple across. It will ripple across nationally in NHS, in any organization.
Absolutely, I think the will is there, but that needs to turn into demonstrable actions. And I think it needs to be something where the space is created for people to have those conversations and people to recognize the importance of that.
People are different, accept the difference, celebrate the difference, and enjoy the difference. And that makes the world a richer and a better place, in my opinion.
A fantastic and really powerful video, and a huge thank you to everyone who took part in the recording of that. And I think that really gets across some of the reasons that we are doing this today and some of the challenges that we face as well. Now, moving on to our next slide, you can see that there are kind of 7 key factors that we as an ICS are addressing when we're looking at, what does it mean to be anti-racist? What does it mean to combat racism and to actually fight, preemptively against it instead of just reacting when we see it. And we look at the first point, and that's acknowledging that institutional racism exists in the NHS. And the statistics we have from our workforce race equality strategies and from feedback from sort of all of our partners is that staff from ethnic minority groups are less likely to access development opportunities and are more likely to be taken through formal disciplinary action. And one of the things is looking at those systems and seeing how we can change that, what we can do to mitigate any bias that's in those systems. Secondly, making sure key decision-making teams include people from a diverse background and their work is created. And that's making sure that we have representation in those groups, because more representation is needed of people from diverse backgrounds in senior leadership and decision-making roles. Herts and West Essex, ICS, has begun developing a talent pipeline and development programme aimed predominantly at staff from these groups. So that's already a first big step. Third, we look at actively making systems and processes more equitable, more fair, by opening up paths of opportunity to those affected by racism. And as part of that programme we mentioned, there will be placements and stretch opportunities available, as well as coaches to help develop staff beyond this programme. The ICS are also working on a work stream around removing barriers from staff from ethnic minority groups to access employment opportunities, as well as developing inclusion ambassadors to ensure that that equity and that fairness goes all the way through our interview panels. When we look at number 4, we're talking about being open to experience that challenge your worldview of racism and inequity, and a very important topic there, white privilege, the freedom that people who are white have to sometimes, ignore these issues or to not be affected by them. And it's about reminding people that, that they should be aware of them and why this is a benefit to all of us if they are. And the ICS have run a series of inclusion webinars over the last 9 months. These have been proven highly successful in starting the ball rolling with being comfortable with uncomfortable conversations. So talking about bias, talking about racism, talking about, maybe as an ally a person isn't doing enough. They have the best intentions, but what else can they do? How else can they show their support? We as an ICS are committed to providing information workshops, as well as targeted development opportunities, webinars and information sessions. And that brings us to point 5, which is providing high quality learning and development opportunities on race, racism, allyship and being anti-racist. And I myself in my organisation actually provide the race equality and allyship coaching alongside our ethnic minority and race equality network. And it's those trainings that are really important in getting those messages across and raising awareness and making people aware of the key issues that these communities face. Now, when we talk about systemic biases, we're not talking about bias or discrimination from people. We're talking about our policies and procedures and the documents that we may have developed without that representation in mind. And number 6 shows our policies reflect our anti-racist stance. And all of our policies in the ICS are frequently reviewed, and as well as the organisations, and appropriate changes made. The primary focus at the moment is recruitment and selection policies in each organisation to ensure they reflect the work being carried out and the commitment made by the ICS as a whole. And last but definitely not least is taking action to address the lack of representation, particularly within senior posts in our organisations. And all leaders in the ICS have committed to increasing the representation of diverse backgrounds across all senior posts within the system. Linking all the work streams together to create momentum across the ICS will be what drives us forward. And I think, we as an organisation, speaking on my own behalf, we've seen some really big improvements in that area, and we can see, how that's really positively affecting our staff and our services. So how are we going to do this? What's the approach? Where are we going with this? And I think you can break this down into 5 key areas. So first of all, you have education and commitment, and that's supporting our leaders, managers, and people to understand what racism is and their role in accelerating change. Every individual needs to take responsibility for their own actions and behaviours, and to challenge those around them who do not display appropriate actions and behaviours. So that's taking it out of the hands of the people affected, and making sure that allies and other people as well are supporting them and not just leaving it to them because we see it as their issue. Civility, respect and safety. So we will support our colleagues by creating cultures of civility, respect and safety. People feel safe and supported when speaking up. And there we're talking about psychological safety, the idea that, you know, we're going to listen to you, we're going to respect you, we're not going to discriminate against you. We want to hear what you have to say. And especially we want to hear when you want to tell us, you know, where we could be improving. Staff should be confident in calling out behaviour that doesn't meet the values of the ICS, and staff should be supported in raising issues and helping to make changes. If we ask everyone to speak up, we have to make sure it's an environment where they're safe to do so. Representation would be the next step, is addressing the lack of representation in leadership and decision making, and using the work being done across the ICS. We will ensure better recruitment practices to ensure equity and fairness in all of our organisations. And again, we come back to our policies, and it's reviewing our policies through an anti-racist lens to ensure they reflect the needs of all our people, and that's all of our people. Our recruitment and promotion practices will be reviewed to remove inherent biases. And it's about building momentum in our work to review, amend and overhaul our recruitment practices to ensure equity and fairness in all of our organisations, because the policies are the foundation of our organisations, and we need to make sure that those were not only reviewed but developed with ethnic minority groups in mind. And then one of the things that we'll see following that review is that we're going to have people, you know, speaking up and have people sharing their experience. And, you know, we want staff to feel that they can be their authentic self, that they can bring their whole selves to work without fear of discrimination, fear of judgment, or fear of being ignored, fear of when somebody talks about anti-racism, you know, it's seen as not important or not a priority. And improving the experience of staff is our primary goal as an ICS, and we know that will have a knock-on effect in the care that we provide for all of our patients. People will feel safe, supported and valued and be able to bring their whole selves to work, and we want our staff to feel enabled to be their authentic self, to challenge colleagues when they see discrimination, to raise issues and to feel confident and supported. So, what can you do to get involved? You've watched this, you've seen the video, you've seen what we have in mind, but what can you do to get involved? So first of all, read the strategy, and that should be available here on the site, and talk to your colleagues about it. Help us raise awareness. This is something that is going to be rolled out across all of our trusts, so we want to make sure that you are on the ground floor with us. We're going to be asking you all to make some pledges, so discuss your individual pledges, or why not do one with your team or your department. And you can write your pledge via Twitter using the hashtags provided, which we'll be giving you, but don't forget to mention your organisation in that post too, and encourage others to do the same. And some people have asked us in the past, you know, why isn't this just senior leads? You know, why isn't this just CEOs that are putting these pledges out? And I think one of the important things we really want to get across is this isn't just about one or two senior leads making these pledges. It's about these pledges we make with ourselves. You know, what are we going to do, you know, as an individual? And I think that's a really good exercise when we encourage people to put these tweets out. Get involved in events and opportunities within your organisation and across the integrated care system, and to make the commitment, make the difference and be the change. So I'm going to show you a quick example here. This is one that I put out through our communications previously, but I myself said I will endeavour to promote anti-racism, race equality and allyship in my trust, and I will work in collaboration with our staff from ethnic minority groups to review our processes and mitigate systemic racism. And if you don't have access to Twitter yourself, you can send your pledges, just write something similar to that and send it through to your communications team. But let me give you some other examples, because people might look at that and go, well, I don't think I have any influence over that, or I don't know what I would pledge. And it can be something really simple. So if you can, you know, say, I will challenge when I hear stereotypes being used, and I'll call out inappropriate language if I hear it on our ward. You know, if you are somebody in your team that's challenging discrimination and racism when you see it, you are already doing a huge piece. I will support my team members who are Black, Asian, or from any other minority ethnicity background to take up training opportunities to help them become leaders and role models. And we see that people from ethnic minority groups sometimes, you know, feel unable to take training or unsupported. So if you are supporting staff and encouraging them to take training like that, that is another huge thing that you can do as a manager. I will educate myself about the experiences of Black women in pregnancy and childbirth so that I can understand and take action to prevent unnecessary trauma. And this is another example that's been given to us. And I think one of the things that's really good about that is it's someone taking that pledge and adapting it to their role, adapting it to their work, to understand the pressures that are faced in their services by people from ethnic minority communities. And one last example is I will recruit more people from diverse backgrounds to our patient groups and ensure their experiences are heard. So even just in the most simple sense, it's just making sure that what we do is representative. It can be very easy for all of us to say, you know, I've got a room full of people for this focus group, or, you know, I've got 7 responses back and these are the 7 we're going to use for the feedback for this policy or procedure. But it's about taking that extra second and asking, is this representative? You know, does this represent everyone in this community? Are these people in this meeting or in this group or in this email chain representative of everyone that they're making a decision on behalf of? And those are just some important things to keep in mind for your pledge. I am going to leave you there, but thank you very much. Best of luck, and we can't wait to see all of your pledges. Thank you very much. Take care and goodbye.